Happy 15 years, Keepers! Hi guys, what's up? It's Julie. Today I am here because it is the 15th anniversary of Kingdom Keepers! Can you believe it? Can you believe this series has been out for 15 years? Now, granted, most of you who are watching this have probably not been reading it for 15 years. I have not been reading it for 15 years. I've been reading it for 7. No wait, possibly 8. I think I started sometime like late 2011, so like 8 years now. But still, dude, that is nuts! It also kind of terrifies me that 2005 was 14 years ago. Anyway, yes, 15 years ago on August 29th, 2005, Disney After Dark was first published, released to the public, and everybody was introduced to the magic. Okay, so before I begin, I do want to apologize for the fan noise in the background. It's really, really hot and humid in New York right now, and my room particularly is very hot, and if I didn't have the fan on, I would be dying. So we do have to deal with the fan noise, but it is what it is, right? We can still talk about Kingdom Keepers. I wanted to come on today, basically, and talk about what Kingdom Keepers means to me. Because in the past year or two, it has really reintroduced itself to me, and I've really realized with increasing significance what this series has been to me my whole life, and what it means to me. And you can't really see it in the frame, but I am wearing my Kingdom Keeper shirt today. I have had this shirt since the 8th grade. I wore it at my first book signing in the 8th grade when I met Ridley Pearson on the day that Shell Game came out. It's just, I might have been the day after Shell Game came out, actually, but it was still exciting. I'll put in a picture. So, yeah, hold on. Maybe I should do a change of wardrobe. Ta-da! Oh, I love these ears. So, I guess I want to... Okay, this looks ridiculous when we're having a serious conversation. So, there's my Kingdom Keepers ears. They're coming off. Oh, no! And we're back. So, in talking about what Kingdom Keepers means to me, I guess I just wanted to start by saying that, like, what I usually say is that I consider Kingdom Keepers my Harry Potter. And I've been considering it that for about the past 2 years. And let me explain. So, I love Harry Potter. This is not to say that I have not read Harry Potter, that I do not love Harry Potter, that Harry Potter does not have a significant part in my life. However, one thing that people who are just a few years older than me talk about was growing up with Harry Potter, and how, you know, the books came out as they were growing up. So, each year as they got older, there was a new book to read, and they were kind of growing up alongside Harry, that they got to grow up with him. Now, while I read Harry Potter, that was not really a sensation that I had fully, because I think the last Harry Potter book came out when I was in about 2nd or 3rd grade. So when I was in 4th grade, I started from Sorcerer's Stone and just read straight through, and from about 4th through 6th grade, because I took breaks in between, I was reading the Harry Potter books. So not only was I younger than Harry was in the first book, while I was reading the 7th book, I read them all at once. I wasn't reading one a year. However, the book series that I did have that sensation with was Kingdom Keepers. When I picked up Disney After Dark, I was in the 7th grade, possibly the 8th. I don't quite remember when I started. And that's about the age the Keepers are in Disney After Dark. So I started reading the books when they were the same age I was. And then in 7th and 8th grade, I read 1 through 4. And then 5 wasn't out yet, so I started reading them when Power Play had just come out. And I was waiting to read Shell Game. So then Shell Game came out. They were in the 9th grade, 15. I was at the end of 8th grade, and I have a late birthday, so I was still 13. So they were a little bit older than me at that point, but just by grade, just 1 grade above me. So it was still like we were in the same grade. And then, you know, then book 6 came out. They were still in the 9th grade. I was in the 9th grade. And then, you know, book 7 happened, and they were a little bit older than me, because I was in the 10th grade. But then we had the Syndrome, and I was 16, they were like 18, and then, you know, by the time the returns started coming out, I was again at the same age as them, and then by the time Disneyland's came out, they were in that summer before their freshman year of college, and when Disneyland's came out, I was a freshman in college. So really, I did get that sensation of growing up alongside the Keepers. Each year that I grew up, there was a new Kingdom Keepers book. They were growing up. They were getting more mature. They were growing in their friendships. And so I got to watch them grow up, and I got to grow up alongside them. I got to see my own self reflected in the characters at different stages of life. And I've been rereading the books, and it's even interesting now going back and rereading the books from an older perspective and seeing how they behave at the different ages and the different points in the book series, and really comparing that to how I was at those ages and seeing the similarities. I don't really know where to go with this further because Kingdom Keepers is so significant to me, but I'm not sure that I have the words. I remember when I was in middle school that this book kind of helped me believe in magic again. And I say that in a way that, like, I don't know if I would be the Disney-obsessed, happy-go-lucky, magical, childlike person I am today if it were not for Kingdom Keepers. Because when I was in the 7th grade, you know, when I started reading the books when I was like 12 years old, I had kind of reached that phase where I was like, oh, I'm kind of too cool for this. Like, I mean, I was still watching Disney movies, but it was like, I don't know, I was kind of evolving out of it. And I remember when I started reading Kingdom Keepers, and that was when I got an Instagram too, and I started getting involved in fandom for the first time. Kingdom Keepers was really my first fandom. And I remember following all these Disney accounts on Instagram of people role-playing Disney characters because I had that connection to it from Kingdom Keepers. And I remember saying that part of me believed that maybe the real characters were out there. Like, I had long since passed the stage where I believed that the characters I was meeting at the parks were the quote-unquote real ones, but I'm not going to talk about that because character integrity. But then when I started reading Kingdom Keepers, I started believing them in the same kind of way I believe in Santa. And I guess that was the point when I started maturing into my current belief of Santa too, which is like, you know, I don't necessarily believe in the concrete physical, but I don't know, even more than Santa, there is a part of me that believes that there are the real characters out there. And I definitely believe in magic in a very complex way that I'm not going to get into because it would make the video too long, and that is because of Kingdom Keepers. I feel like Kingdom Keepers reignited that in me and allowed that to happen. And having this constant love of Kingdom Keepers in my life allowed that to stay throughout my life. And my teenage and adult life, anyway. I am so failing at finding the right words right now, I'm so sorry. But, like, so that was a factor, right? So it was my first fandom. I grew up alongside them, and it helped me believe in magic again, and it was just so significant. I mean, and it was only like a year ago, like a year and a half ago, a year and a few months ago, it was last May, that I realized just how much Kingdom Keepers had meant to me. Last May, I was kind of going through a rough patch, and had been for the past 2 years, and I picked up Disney After Dark. And I decided to reread it. Because normally, the way it would work for me with Kingdom Keepers was after the first couple of years, I would forget about it for a whole year, and then the next book would come out in April or May, and I would be completely re-obsessed and just all over it. And that would last for about a month or two, and then I would go back to forgetting about it until the next book came out. But then last May, there was no new book. But I found that it was actually last April that love, that obsession for Kingdom Keepers that came every time the new book came out, came back in April anyway. It was like wired into my body, like some kind of crazy circadian rhythm. And so at that point I decided to reread Disney After Dark. And it was in rereading Disney After Dark that I fell right back in love that quickly. I mean, I read it in like 2 days. I couldn't put it down, and it was like my 10th time reading that book, and it just dawned on me how much that series had meant to me, and how all the things that I just said were true. How I kind of grew up alongside of it. And I think I realized that because looking at the characters when they were younger, as my older self, allowed me to really reflect. And you get to see them differently. You get to see the story differently, which I found really interesting, and I talk about that a little bit in my reread videos. And that was, like, it. Kingdom Keepers is, like, that light. It allowed me to be childlike excited again, once a year. And, you know, so, I guess in the past 2 years, now I'll talk about that. So, my freshman year of college was, like, a really rough year, and I'm not gonna go into detail, but my mental health was bad. I just had a bad experience, and at that point, it wasn't Kingdom Keepers that helped me through that. I had a TV show that helped me through that. Which, if you know this channel, you know, that's The Librarians. All my videos are about it for like 3 years. But then, a few months after I finished my freshman year of college, when I was expecting everything to be okay again, and also in May of that year, April of that year when Disney at Last came out, I had that boom, that pop of light, of that joy that Kingdom Keepers brought from being obsessed with it for a while because of Disney at Last. And so it was a few months after I moved back from my freshman year of college that, I mean, I couldn't find the excitement for The Librarians anymore. And that bothered me, and it just spiraled into this huge mess. And that lasted for about a year, where I was, like, in this awful funk for a year that would have its highs and lows. And it was getting gradually better, but I didn't have any fandom that made me super, super excited to focus on, and that allowed me to focus on bad thoughts. And so, I didn't have anything, and I couldn't get out of this funk until I reread Disney After Dark. And then that kind of pulled me out of the funk, that launched me into a new wave of excitement about Kingdom Keepers, and then that one lasted, and it's still going. I mean, it has its on and off points, but it's mostly still going, and, I mean, it has just guided me to this new stage in my life that I couldn't be happier to be in. More obsessed with Disney than I ever have been, especially Disney World, planning on moving there after I graduate in a year. And so Kingdom Keepers just, like, gave me that happiness back. It gave me myself back. It led me to a new version of myself. And at the same time, I'm not putting this into the right words. I should have thought about this more before I spoke. I mean, and Kingdom Keepers, it's always been one of those things that can just make me happy, no matter what's going on. When I was 16, about to be 17, my little brother passed away, and I remember the first couple of days after it happened of being so awful, and then one day 2 or 3 days later, I was sitting in my room, and I pulled out The Insider, which is one of my favorite Kingdom Keepers books. And now when I read books, I dog-ear the pages. Blasphemy, I know, but I dog-ear the pages of my favorite passages, whether it be a good moment before one of the ships, or a funny moment, or a good quote that I like, I'll dog-ear them so I can find them again. That ended up being perfect for this moment, because I sat on my bed and I flipped through the dog-eared pages of The Insider, and it was the first time that I really smiled again. And so Kingdom Keepers has always been that kind of thing. To this day, if I'm having a rough time, I will, like, take out The Insider or Disney at Last or something and just flip through the dog-eared pages. Usually I pick the books that have the most significant ship moments. But that's what Kingdom Keepers is to me. It's that childlike joy. It's that magic. It's that happiness. And it has just allowed it to continue to live inside of me. And that is what it means to me, other than being my Harry Potter, other than being the characters I grew up alongside, which is significant too, but it's just childhood, it's joy, and I love that this series exists so that people can have that. I love that in all that is going on in the world, in this culture of negativity and people growing up really quickly, that something like Kingdom Keepers exists. To just, like, representing magic, representing belief in good, and I just think it excels at that, and there is so much I can say, so much else that I can say that I do not have the words for right now. There are some other things, like Willa was the first character I ever really felt that I saw myself in a book, and she's still a huge inspiration for me, and I learn more about her as I learn more about myself and reread the books and see new parts of her that are me, that I see myself reflected in new ways in her. As I get older, I relate to Philby more and more too, and Philby is an inspiration for me. I feel like I have a little bit of each of the Keepers in me, and it's great. it's great to have had that growing up, and I am so glad to celebrate 15 years of Kingdom Keepers today. And I can't wait to celebrate more. 5 years ago, which seems like crazy, I was in Magic Kingdom on the 10th anniversary. I had a big button. I got a lot of attention for this big button that I wore. I still have that button somewhere. And it made me so happy. And now hopefully next year I'll be living there and I can go into Magic Kingdom on the 20th anniversary of Kingdom Keepers. Not the 20th, the 16th. Well, I mean, in 5 years from now, maybe I can go in on the 20th anniversary. But I mean, it's crazy, and it's crazy that it's been this long, and I'm so happy that for the past 15 years, the world has had the Kingdom Keepers. So let me know in the comments, if you want to, what Kingdom Keepers means to you, and tell me, just tell me, I want to hear it, because today's a day to celebrate. Guys, if you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe. And if you want to follow more of my adventures, you can follow me on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads. All the information is in the description below. There's also a link to my Kingdom Keepers Instagram and my Disney Instagram. So that is it for today. Thanks for joining me, and stay magical. Bye!